Today's reading is from Moses, Exodus 13 and 14. After leaving Zukkoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of clouds to guide them on their way, by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. When the king of Egypt was told the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he had his chariot made and ready, and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon.
As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and they were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid, stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so they will go in after them, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen." Then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided. The Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie and Molly, for that reading. Some really difficult words in there, I know, and you did a great job to bring us that reading. It's a very exciting story, one of the most iconic stories in the Old Testament. So just really quickly, we're going to continue with the focus on Moses, as Claire has introduced already, following on from what Alan did last week. Now, Moses' story is told in the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. In fact, if you don't know, they are books 2 to 5 in the Old Testament in the Bible. And Moses is also mentioned in the New Testament books of the Acts of the Apostles and the book of Hebrews. We're going to look at some more, including the one that Julie has looked at, some more of the iconic stories in the book of Exodus. We're going to see how God was with his people in a number of key situations in that book. And we're going to remind ourselves that now, as then, God was with us as Jesus, our Emmanuel. The house groups in the church and the Bible groups will be going through the book of Exodus and 2 of the New Testament readings as well in real detail this week. And all I'm going to do today is give an overview. So here we go. Let's fasten our seatbelts. So first, in the reading that we had from Julie and Molly, chapter 13, chapter 14, we have the story of the crossing of the Red Sea. Famous story, well known. Pharaoh had let the Israelites leave Egypt, where they had been held captive But as we heard in that reading, he changed his mind and went after them. But God was on the side of the Israelites and guided them in their escape. How did he do that? Julie and Molly read this. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way. And by night, a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. Then, with the Egyptian army bearing down on them, God miraculously parted the sea to allow the people to cross, and he allowed the sea then to go back, causing the pursuing army to perish. It's a lesson for us there, and that is that God will make a way where there seems to be no way. We may be facing a situation that needs God to guide us through it. This was a story of God guiding his people and providing a way out where things seemed hopeless. And so bringing it personally to us, we may be facing a seemingly impossible situation. It may be a family situation. It could be a relationship situation. Maybe a work situation, something where it seems that whichever way you go, there's hopelessness, whichever way you jump. Whatever it is, the lesson from chapter 14 is don't be afraid. Bring the situation to God and trust in him. Don't be afraid. Stand firm. You will see the deliverance of the Lord today. The Lord will fight for you and you will only need to be still. Okay. Next, chapter 16, we find the Israelites in trouble in a desert, facing starvation. What happens? God says he will provide, and he does. He said he would rain down bread from heaven, and he did. Amazingly, the Israelites ate this bread, or manna, as it was known, from heaven for years in the desert. Next, chapter 17, we find the Israelites in trouble, having nothing to drink. What happens? Well, I'm just going to read it, just remind ourselves of the story. The Lord answered Moses, go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand a staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. Next, I'm really sorry about this. I can't go into huge detail because there's just so much. I'm just trying to give you an overview. So in chapters 19 and 20, we have the giving of the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai. Next, chapter 32, we have what might be called a calf problem, serious for sportsmen. But this calf was a golden calf and was the outcome of the Israelites not trusting God. They had made a golden calf out of their melted gold jewelry and had worshipped that golden calf. Read all about it in chapter 32. A big subject. But for us, perhaps let's think, what are our golden calves? What have we made to replace our God? Next, the series of readings that we've got for the house groups this week introduces us to another Bible hero who we'll look at in later weeks, and that hero is Joshua. And Joshua, amongst other things, is known for leading the Israelites across the Jordan River into Canaan, the promised land. In all of the stories that are in our readings this week, God was with his people. That was the theme, God being with his people, and he wants to be with each one of us as we write the stories of our lives. In a moment, we're going to sing to the God who wants us to be guided by him in a song that has become synonymous with Wales. And I guess before we sing it, I want to take a brief look at the song or the hymn. Who wrote it? The words that are in it, the tune, and the writer of the tune. And the hymn is Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah, or Guide Me, O Thou Great Redeemer, depending on which hymn book you look at. And the tune is Cum Rhondda. It isn't really surprising that the hymn has become synonymous with Wales. Why? Because two Welshmen combined quite separately to bring us the hymn. William Williams of Pantycelyn wrote the words. Now, William Williams was converted through the fiery preaching of someone called Howell Harris, who was a renowned Welsh evangelist. William had given up his medical studies to travel the land, singing and preaching the gospel news. Okay, what about the tune Cwm Rhondda? Was composed by John Hughes, no relation as far as I know. He attended Salem Baptist Church in Tontig Church Village, and my research, the number of sites which go into all this kind of thing, my research has shown me that the song or the hymn was first performed at the Gymanfegani, or a singing festival, in Capel Rhondda in Hopkinstown in Pontypridd. So there's some great local connections for us there. And the song itself, of course, has gone on to be sung all over the world. And I could get you to think of some of the places where you may have heard it. One that springs to mind is the royal wedding of Kate and William. Do you remember the time when we all had an extra bank holiday on a Friday as well as the Monday in May? That hymn was sang as a centerpiece of the royal wedding of William and Kate. And I was given a challenge by Claire earlier on to see how I might bring Welsh rugby into the talk. Well, here we go. Of course, the hymn is also sung at most Welsh rugby internationals in Cardiff. You may well, if you are Welsh, have sung this with thousands of others whilst cheering on the Welsh rugby team. I can see Jill in my top left of my screen, and I'm sure that many others of you have, and there are probably one or two of a particular nationality that haven't, though. If you think about the chorus of the first verse, when we sing, bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. If you think of the faces you may have seen on the TV as you've been looking around at a Welsh game, what are most supporters probably thinking of at that point where they're singing it? They're probably interpreting it to mean, give us more tries, especially against England. My mind goes back to the famous Welsh game in 1999. The start of that game, I didn't tell you what it was. The famous Welsh game at Wembley when Wales beat England with a pretty much a last minute effort by Scott Gibbs, who ran over, broke the English hearts. But at the start of that game, the singing of Bread of Heaven was led by Tom Jones and Max Boyce. If you remember it, it's on YouTube if you want to find it. Well, that's rugby. What about football? Not leave anything out. I'm a great lover of football, and Manchester United in particular, but football crowds are a lot less poetic than rugby crowds. They do sing the tune of Cwm Rhondda, or part of it, but the words sung at football are much more basic. For example, they will often sing, we'll support you evermore, or you're not singing anymore, or whatever. And a range of other one-liners to goad the other team. So that's the hymn. Famous tune. But what about the words of that hymn? One of the most iconic songs of Welsh rugby is actually full of imagery from the Bible, and particularly from the stories we've looked at this morning. We had bread of heaven. We had the stream of living water from the rock, and we had the fiery, cloudy pillar. For me, the words of the hymn are incredibly personal. We're asking God to guide us, guide me, hold us, hold me, feed us, feed me, lead us, lead me, land us safely, land me safely. Of course, what we're doing is we're acknowledging that He is our strong deliverer, our strength and shield, and the one who can command our anxious fears away. And Emmanuel, which means God with us, was and is always the plan.